Here to entertain you once again, Guerin Emig, Tulsa World Sports columnist, along with my friend Eli Lederman. I don't know what to call him any longer. Let's just put it this way. Eli is serving a lot of needs right now. He's wrapping up his work as our OSU beat writer, transitioning to the University of Oklahoma beat with Eric Bailey. He's doing a little bit of double dipping right now. So this could be a farewell Eli Lederman podcast, vidcast, or maybe we may run it right through next year. We'll have to see. Well, do you have any thoughts on what you tell the people what's going on, Eli? I'm speaking for you.
Well, I'm nursing like a strained hammy because I've got my feet stretched in both camps. I'm in Stillwater. I'm coming to you from Stillwater, but I've been doing some work down in Norman. So it's kind of it's a stretch. It's a bit of a stretch, and I don't know. I'm feeling it a little bit, but yeah, right now I'm sort of in between, making my way toward transitioning onto the OU beat and linking up with Eric Bailey and Norman. But as I said, coming to you from Stillwater still, and still doing a little bit of work on OSU and kind of, I don't know, closing out my time on this end of the beat. But that's the story this spring is kind of feet in both camps.
Kelly Hines will be taking the baton from you. We should mention that. Very capable hands. The beat will be moving forward. And before we break down anything you saw or heard in Stillwater this week, a reminder that you can catch our videos on TulsaWorld.com every week. Get the podcast version courtesy of Google, Apple, or Spotify. Thank you so much for downloading our products, no matter what kind of show we put out and whatever the topic might be. You were at the Sherman Smith Indoor Facility for Mike Gundy's first availability of this spring, and we'll talk about Pro Day here in a second and other Cowboy issues, but we should probably start with the CEO of the football program. He seemed to be in a pretty good mood, Eli, on Tuesday. I maybe still riding the wave off what he called the most important, biggest school victory victory in school history of the Fiesta Bowl comeback against Notre Dame. Whatever it was, whether he loved that experience a lot or he loves the look of the 2022 Cowboys, he was a willing participant with us and was raring to go.
I think he might have just been thrilled to see Guerin Emig's face here in Stillwater.
Isn't everyone?
That's how I feel every time you show up. And I think, he certainly was chipper. That's a good way of putting it. And it's hard to believe that it's been 2.5, 3 months since we were out in Arizona for the Fiesta Bowl wrapping up. And here we are now. The 2022 season kind of begins here in the spring. And I think there's plenty for Mike Gundy to be optimistic about and excited about. He's got a new defensive coordinator in Derek Mason, and by all accounts, he's settling in quite well. We know Derek Mason's got a job to do here in terms of kind of filling some holes on this defense that was so good a year ago, but is missing so many of those key players. And on offense, I think there has to be some added security coming into a season with a fourth-year quarterback like Spencer Sanders, who showed us in the Fiesta Bowl just what he could do, and having him at the head of an offense that has some things to figure out. I mean, there's plenty of pass-catching options, but there's no Tay Martin, there's no Tylan Wallace, I don't think, in there that we know of yet, and things to be figured out at running back and on the O-line. But Mike Gundy was all smiles, and he was pretty long-winded in being willing to chat on Tuesday.
And as is always the case with Gundy, the questions range from on the field to off. I asked the follow-up about his ever curious relationship with his administration. Well, it's not so much curious anymore, Eli, as how much has the flower bloomed. We got the sense last year during the course of the season that he was sort of invigorated maybe by the change of president and athletic director at the university, Chad Weiberg and Casey Schrum taking over full time in Chad's case for Mike Holder. And the good vibes that sort of hovered over Gundy over the course of last season off the field, safe to say they continued based on his response to what we were asking him.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he's felt like he's been back, and that's what he was calling for all of last season. I think it probably all goes back to the Big 12 changing and seizing this moment. And then that was helped on by one of the best seasons Mike Gundy's ever had here. This is the time for them to pounce and to build. And it seems like he's pretty pleased with what he's gotten so far. I mean, spoke about financials in terms of backing, a lot of the backroom people that we don't know, the people that run things inside the team facility, that those people have been taken care of. Speaking about maybe some facilities upgrades. And then when you think about the fact that Derek Mason is here making $1.1 million, that's more than any assistant has made under Mike Gundy. And that's after, it was rumored that they were willing to go there and then some for Jim Knowles to keep him here. So Mike Gundy's got to be feeling like he's getting the support he needs. And maybe that's why he's got a little bit of a spring in his step as things get started.
Yeah, the way he put it later in the conversation was, if I need it and I tell Chad Weiberg I need it, Chad says, we'll get it. The key, about what Gundy is, where he says he's drawing the line is, I'm not abusing that. And I'm not running up necessarily a front office of 200 to 300 guys yet. I don't have analysts on top of analysts, and yet you still have to keep up. They may not be going to the SEC, Oklahoma State, but just from a Power 5 level, you do have to do what is necessary to sort of keep up in the so-called arms race. Again, arms race used to be a term we used to describe the facilities when it came to college football. I think that's morphed into staff and support staff and off the field player personnel, for lack of a better term. And it sounds like Weiberg is giving Gundy what he needs. All right, so that was Tuesday. Thursday was a sort of trip back to the past, the recent past, as I think 13 was the number, 12 or 13 Cowboys worked out for NFL personnel back at the indoor facility and in the weight room. Get it, and you got a sense, Eli, from that. I know you were Norman that day, but for those who attended, got a sense of what does need to be replaced in terms of the 2022 Cowboys. You had Devin Harper working out alongside Malcolm Rodriguez. You had Colby Harvell-Peel out there with Trey Sterling. You had Jalen Warren. You had Tay Martin, skill guys, go-to guys for Spencer Sanders. And so, not to mention their most touted offensive lineman in Josh Sills. Gundy may like his 2022 team, and it sees a lot of potential, but just a stark reminder of not just the potential of those guys in the NFL Thursday, but in just how much work needs to be done to fill those holes.
It really is. I mean, it's like looking in the mirror and realizing, what this team has lost since that Fiesta Bowl. I mean, a comeback like that is made possible by guys like Malcolm Rodriguez and Devin Harper and by Jalen Warrens. And those are guys that could be on this roster. You might have your next Trey Sterling or Colby Harvell-Peel, but at this point, late March, early in spring camp, we don't know who those guys are. And so those are the reminders. And it seems as though some of those guys did pretty well yesterday in front of, I think, 28 of the 32 teams were represented.
Thereabout.
And I mean, I think, the focus, anytime Malcolm Rodriguez is anywhere, he's going to grab the headlines. But I think since that Fiesta Bowl, I mean, he was in Arizona working out, went to the NFL draft combine and answered some questions about his speed. And then yesterday, I couldn't believe what I saw, what he did on the bench. I think he hit some kind of record with 36 reps on the bench press. And so it seemed as though another banner day for him. Yeah.
And it's something that it's funny. You almost ask the same question to every Cowboy who appeared in front of cameras and tape recorders afterwards, and that is, what are you out to prove? Oklahoma State did not get a lot of combine invites, despite the success on the field a year ago. Certainly paled in numbers to the traditional blue bloods of college football. And so, what if every OSU player carries a chip on his shoulder through his career, right, under Mike Gundy, more of the 3-star camp than the 4 to 5-star camp? That sort of mindset continues, I think, in pursuit of NFL opportunity.
And if anyone should maybe have a chip on their shoulder, it's Devin Harper. And I from the sound of it and from everything I saw, he might have had the best day of anybody yesterday. And that's a guy who, I mean, Mike Gundy referenced it on Tuesday, who didn't really get his shot and maybe should have until this past season. When he did, he really grabbed it. And as much as Malcolm Rodriguez, jumping up the record books and tackles and really being the heart of that defense, was the guy people focused on. Right next to him, Devin Harper was maybe just as key to the defense a year ago. And he didn't get a combine invite when he probably should have. He was one of those guys I think people felt was snubbed. And so he had a chance yesterday, I think, to prove himself and maybe came in with a chip on his shoulder. And well, Malcolm Rodriguez, the questions around him are not what he can really do as a tackler, but his size, his speed, all that. Those really aren't questions for Devin Harper. He's built like an NFL linebacker. And so I think for him to get that shot at pro day, do what he did in front of the scouts, it was big. And I'd hope a guy like him can get a shot, because I think he's got a lot of the skill to maybe make an impact at the next level.
For sure. All right. Let's put basketball season away officially. Mike Boynton, we know, I guess, as of today, and I think it's pretty, 95 percentile chance now that we can say he'll be on the bench in Gallagher-Iban next year. There was always a speculation about South Carolina, the alma mater. That filled since we last talked, with the Gamecocks going a different direction, the mid-major route, right? They ended up hiring Chattanooga's coach. Is that right?
So
right?
Lamont Paris.
Yeah.
One of us probably should have looked that up before we got on here. But.
Yeah, we're going to go with Chattanooga. It wasn't Boynton. Maybe that's the important thing. So he's back, unless something crazy happens. The roster is still in flux. We have, I guess, we have some finality to the Boone twins situation, correct? Though, what's going on with Keelan and Caleb?
The news around OSU basketball this week has been, one Boone in, one Boone out. Keelan Boone on Monday entered the transfer portal, and there had been some speculation there. It was telling that over the final 10-ish games of the season, he struggled even to just get off the bench. Mike Boynton was sort of he was vague on it, saying, he needed to do the things in practice and away from the court to earn his time, and that Woody Newton had surpassed him. So the writing maybe was on the wall, but he's now in the transfer portal. But a couple of days later, and I guess when Keelan goes somewhere, people at least wonder, does Caleb follow? The twins, if you see him anywhere on campus, they are inseparable. But Caleb Boone has, made his announcement that he plans to be back. And I think that's a big boost for the Cowboys. It basically keeps them taken care of at their interior big positions. You've got Musa Cisse coming back, Tyreek Smith. The expectation is he's one of the guys who's certainly going to be back. And you bring back Caleb Boone, and you've got, you're taking care of, especially on the defensive end inside. So that's a plus for Mike Boynton. And as much as his roster is kind of in flux now, he doesn't have a whole lot of space to add. I think there's only 1 or 2 scholarship spots he can take care of. And that's with the scholarship reductions that he's got to worry about the next few years. And so as Mike Boynton talks about adding a point guard, adding shooting, the space on that roster may be a bit limited. So he's got some work to do there.
And we have a new women's basketball coach as of Monday afternoon. I think that was Monday.
Correct.
That was this week, wasn't it? JC Hoyt from, did they still call it UMKC? Or is it just
UMKC, the Ruse?
What are
the best nicknames in college basketball, I would argue, is the Ruse of UMKC.
And she arrives wearing orange, which was, I guess, her first step literally in the right direction. If you're gonna be hired to coach basketball at Oklahoma State, you got to have a finely tailored orange outfit, and she looked the part. Let's put it that way at Gallagher-Iban on Monday.
She's known for her sneaker game, and then showed up in an orange blazer. She's given Mike Boynton a run for his money right off the bat. But I do think there's some excitement there to be had in bringing in a young coach. I think it was noted early on, and after Jim Littell and the university sort of mutually agreed to part ways, that there's not a woman head coach at any of the schools any of the programs here at Oklahoma State. And as much as Chad Weiberg spoke about not limiting his pool, I think that was an important element of it. And now Oklahoma State women's basketball has a young head coach who executed a pretty impressive turnaround at UMKC. In charge, and I think it's kind of that right time. We saw what's gone down at OU in terms of their turnaround with the women's basketball program, and I think that, like it or not, should be the blueprint for JC Hoyt and the Cowgirls now.
Must be nice this weekend. You going to watch any softball or baseball, or the?
I will be. I'll be at both ballparks at some point.
They're both home.
Both home. You got the baseball team, winners of their last 8. Hosting Kansas, your Jayhawks, to get things started, and then over at Cowgirls Stadium, Texas Tech here, and the Cowgirls have won 4 straight. And really, I think the big storyline there is Miranda Ellish. The last 2-3 weeks after a rocky start, and who could blame her after a year away from softball, she's beginning to look like that National Player of the Year kind of pitcher. She's thrown 2 no-hitters in the last 2 weeks, and that's where I think the Cowgirls can become scary. Is it? You got Kelly Maxwell pitching like that and Miranda Ellish pitching like she has. I think that's what Kenny Gajewski envisioned when he had his sights on the College World Series this year. Yeah,
they're going to hit, right? It's just a matter of what Ellish and Maxwell do to support what is a potent offense for OSU. All right, before we go, you want to break down the Zero result last night at Azteca?
Not much to break down. I don't know what the highlight reel would have looked like if they released one. It was I don't know, craptastic. How do you want to the 0-0 in Mexico? But U.S. men get, I guess, a crucial point. What could be a crucial point. Had opportunities, as we both lamented, communicating last night to maybe get all 3 points and get a win. But the U.S. men live to fight another day and live to make us anxious for at least another few days.
A friend of mine texted me and said, look, I can't remember feeling in my life this conflicted. We get out of Mexico with a tie and a point, and yet I feel sort of upset. And so maybe that's the raised bar when it comes to the U.S. men's national team, right? I guess
so. But man, what a bright light Gio Reyna was for about 30 minutes there. And that one run that Greg Berhalter, you see who he compared it to?
I did not. Let me hear it.
Well, at the Azteca, one Diego Armando Maradona once had a very similar run. It's a lofty comparison, but I think given the setting and man, if he could have finished that off, that would have been one for the books as well. But if Gio Reyna can even scrape, I don't know, the floor of Diego Maradona will be just fine here in the U.S.
I didn't need to know that, man. I love Reyna. Yeah, I'm a big Dortmund guy. You know this. I don't know how many of the listeners know or care, but so I was fired up to see him healthy again and mattering again. But I'm not sure I would have tossed out. Looked like Maradona against England in the 1986 World Cup.
Yeah, it was lofty.
Oh,
all right. Like you said, we're setting the bar high now. All
right. So match day 2 is out of this grouping is Sunday, right? And that's the big one. That's the one they need 3.
Indeed.
Need a 3-point win against Panama to feel pretty secure about things. So can you imagine what it's like in Italy today?
Oof. Well, actually we can, because we were there in 2018. But they, knock on wood, we're not going to watch our national team do it 2 cycles in a row, missing out on the World Cup in pretty rough fashion.
My goodness. Oh, well, on that happy note, have a good weekend at the Ball Yards, plural, Eli, and I hope to do this again with you. It may be on this pod, it may be on Oklahoma's, it may be you and I just start our own knockoff on Men in Blazers or some other.
Go. Yeah, I'm talking soccer with Guerin and Eli.
We should probably
by the Tulsa World.
We should look into that. All right, thanks for listening / watching, folks, and we will be back to do this again soon.